Well, g'day everybody, and thank you for joining me wherever in the world you find yourself today. And I'm pleased to be rerunning this session talking about e-learning authoring in the age of AI. Of course, AI is touching almost every aspect of our lives now, and the e-learning industry is certainly not immune to that. And so today I want to look at, and I guess have a real candid look at the pros, the cons, the elements around lock-in that you might want to consider if you're considering utilizing e-learning authoring tools that are leveraging AI, and what are the important things for you around convenience, control, and so on. What are the things that you cannot afford to lose? So we'll get straight into it. Now here at Capytech, we use e-learning, we use AI every single day, from helping us put together text, to helping us to generate applicable content, generating images, and just so much more. And so before, say, even a year or two ago, the AI assisted authoring was much more of a, I guess, a novelty. You could use certain components of it, such as you could go into ChatGPT and it could generate some quiz questions, like multiple choice quiz questions for you. But now what you're seeing is that a growing number of learning platforms are allowing you to generate the content directly inside of that platform. So perhaps you can upload a PDF or some documents. You maybe give it some prompting or go answer a few questions, and then you can have a draft together literally in minutes. We see this as well in our own e-learning authoring tools. We leverage the Articulate suite like Storyline and Rise, and we are, of course, utilizing this as well. So one of the key questions you want to ask yourself is the content really good enough yet? And what are we trading off for this speed? So there's a few aspects there that on each one of these two questions that you really want to dig deep into, while still making sure that you're being pragmatic about the benefits of leveraging AI. So let's look at the upside, and this applies to the building of e-learning authoring, e-learning content, as much as many other domains. So the first is speed. I mean, no one's going to deny that. It can take days, weeks to generate fully immersive e-learning. But now you can go from a policy document to a interactive, or at least partially interactive, e-learning module in literally minutes, at least to get your first draft. And that's an important caveat there. So you can get it to a useful starting point almost instantly. It also has a much lower barrier to entry. Some of the e-learning authoring tools can be a little bit complicated. They've got a bit of a learning curve that you need to consider as you are building out your content. They could be a little bit complicated, particularly when you start looking at triggers, and you're looking at ways that you can fully leverage the power of those tools. So by utilizing AI, often they are much simplified. And so you might not have the full flexibility that you do in more powerful e-learning tools, but you're able to get something much easier. So it opens it up to more the lay person. When I say lay, I mean they're not L&D professionals. They might be a technical person working, for instance, in health and safety. It opens it up to them, so they are able to get something together quite quickly. You can iterate faster as well. So tying into the first point as well, if you want to update content, then you're able to do so maybe with just a few clicks. You can bring in new policy documents. You can modify materials very quickly. And ideally, you'll get some greater consistency there as well. Now, this will vary a little bit according to which tool you're using, but if you're leveraging the same AI tool, then the tone, the structure, the way it looks, the format will be most likely much more consistent than if you've got perhaps different stakeholders or different vendors or different tools being used to develop your e-learning. To be honest, most companies that even we deal with don't necessarily have a standard very well articulated about how to develop their e-learning. So it's quite common that some of their e-learning looks a little bit inconsistent there. So if you're utilizing these tools, and by virtue of them being a little bit simplified as well, you're able to achieve that greater levels of consistency. So that's the upside. Similar areas that you would have seen in other applications of AI too. So let's look at some other considerations here. So the faster and easier it is to build inside your platform, the more the content you accumulate, you may never be able to take with you. This is a bit of a lock-in. So this has been there for a while, where within learning platforms, you're being able to author e-learning content. And that's been used to varying extents, of course. But now with AI, because you can generate that content much, much faster, it means you might end up with quite a lot of materials built inside of whichever learning platform that you might be utilizing at the moment. So it feels seamless. In fact, it should be seamless. The goal of any learning platform is to make both the learning itself seamless with as few clicks as possible, as well as the creation of e-learning as seamless as possible now, especially leveraging AI. But the risk is there that you are effectively locked into that platform. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, what is this lock-in and portability that I talk about? And to outline this up front, I've always advocated an approach of separating your learning platform from your learning generation. Now, the upside of that, or let's go focus on the negative first. The negative of that is it might not look as seamlessly integrated as content that's built natively on your system. Now, they can, if you build it natively in the system, it will perhaps be shown in line. It might have tighter integration with certain elements there. But the reason I advocate this is for one of the cons that are there. That is, when you develop on a system, you might not be able to get it out. So this happens time and time again, where you've chosen not to renew a license with a particular LMS for whatever reason. That might be a business decision because you're going in a different direction, or it could be due to performance, whatever it is. But what it means is, as often that anything you've generated there, you might not be able to get out. So a key element is that you want to make sure that you've got an export function. So that should be either available to you in SCORM or xAPI. SCORM is still by far the most common protocol that is universally accepted by pretty much every learning platform. xAPI is a more capable system there, but it is far less adopted than what you will see SCORM. So you really, ideally, you want to have both xAPI for the benefits that xAPI can bring you if you do have a new system that supports it, or SCORM will give you kind of universal capabilities there. So what would that mean for you? If you don't have that export function, then it makes the switching platforms potentially much more time consuming than you realize, because you go onto a new platform, but then you need to build all that content again. For us, when we are building or talking about how we do our e-learning, we want to give ultimate portability for that content. So we develop a lot of our modules in either Storyline or Rise. You can take those modules wherever you're going. You just get a new SCORM file. You don't even need a new SCORM file half the time. Sometimes it needs a few tweaks, but often it will work immediately. You can take that SCORM file and put it onto any system that you might need. Some organizations that we see even have multiple platforms, sometimes for internal usage, sometimes for blue collar audience, sometimes for an external audience as well. The ability then you can put those to as many audiences as you want. You got the flexibility there. And then, so the question you've got to ask when you're procuring these systems is, who actually owns this content? Now, you, of course, most likely retain the IP to it, but do you actually own it if you can't get it, out? And if your export options are perhaps limited to a PDF or something similar like this, then that's not necessarily going to serve you very well when it comes to getting the most out of it on a new system. If you're just exporting a PDF or a video, you lose all the tracking capability, the benefits of having systems like SCORM that allow learners to resume, report, and so on their progress through a learning platform. Now, the second element here, and this is kind of one of the things that you need to consider, you can get to that draft very quickly. I do this myself. Like, if it's something that's low stakes, and maybe it's fine. If it's a quick email, then that's absolutely usually fine. If it's something that it's a short report, the stakes are relatively low, sure. And then you can get away with not necessarily checking the module too heavily. But the QA, or quality assurance, is absolutely something that you don't want to skip out on when it comes to e-learning that might go to hundreds or even thousands of learners. You've got to make sure that there's a few elements there that you are looking at very accurately. First is factual accuracy. So when we develop content using AI, we take the modules and then we run it through a red team. So we do that versus the original materials that we might have been provided, and then we will do a red teaming action where we'll make sure that the content there is still aligned with what happens, what's inside the learning. Because if we know that AIs, they're getting better and better, and they're only going to get improve and continue to improve, but we do know that they do sometimes hallucinate, and you might mix up some figures that might actually be, critical. So that red teaming is something that we take very seriously as well. Now, the other part here is instructional design. So making sure that if you're taking, let's say, a code of conduct, which is something we develop all the time, you're taking code of conduct. You're not just converting it into taking each page of those and sticking into something that resembles e-learning. You'll want to make sure that you've got a structure, you've got objectives, you've got an appropriate assessment, everything's aligned with the goals of the program. So you still need to apply instructional design techniques. Some systems will do this better than others. And so that's where you need to really robustly check this to make sure the objectives are aligned with your organizational objectives. The assessment is assessing the objectives and so on. And it's built in such a way that it makes sense to the learners, and they're able to get the most out of it as well. And lastly, you want to consider the accessibility and localization elements there. This varies, of course, region to region, but you need to make sure that if you do have accessibility standards enforced at your organization, that the AI-generated content does still match that. And similarly, in localization, it's been a challenge for some, particularly in some languages like right to left languages like Arabic. Yeah, of course, that's hugely prominent where we are. It's our second most common language, which isn't a surprise given where we're situated. But this has been a challenge for e-learning authoring tools in general and AI as well. So if localization is something that is important to you and you need to roll out modules in multiple languages, then that's even a bigger point where that quality assurance really needs to come into play. And people buy from people they like, right? And that client relationship is still very, very human. So if you are just purely developing this for perhaps stakeholders and you're an SME here, then you still need to be having those kind of conversations about what is the purpose of this program. What are the things that we have to keep in? What are the things that we can afford to miss out on in order to keep time down and so forth? So this kind of accountability, you can't automate that. Someone that's building these e-learning materials, they are also most likely going to be accountable for how well it's delivered, that quality assurance, understanding exactly what the organizational requirements are. Part of what we do at Capytech is this kind of consultative side where, okay, you want a module on your code of conduct. Okay, what's important to you? Why do you need this module? Who's the target audience? And a variety of other questions to make sure that we understand exactly what is needed for the organization, what's important to them, what their how they like to present this kind of learning. We get everything from organizations that are very casual, just by their culture, and some that are much more kind of, I guess, strict, and that can vary according to industry as well. And that is really discovered through that client relationship, the human to human touch there. And AI, at least not yet, can't kind of exactly replicate that. And this goes to what I was talking about a little bit before in the instructional design side. So you need to understand that content is not the same as learning. Just getting stuff onto a screen, that's very easy. But actually applying robust pedagogical principles to the science, applying the science of learning to your e-learning, the AI cannot always get that exactly right. Some of the stronger systems will, like what we use with Articulate a lot. They've got their own fine-tuned models that allow that. So always just make sure that when you're developing these materials, that it's not just a pure trade-off for speed. That you're not just going, text on screen, basically. Yes, it's very, very fast, but it's also not very effective as well. You always want to have high effectiveness in your learning. That means it's got to be engaging, it's got to be memorable, it's got to be something that the learners might want to come back to again and again, or at least they can easily get through the assessments that you might have as a part of the module, so we can feel a high level of confidence that they understand what's happening there. So a simple way to decide, and this is just a rule of thumb, take it for what you will. I would say the rule of thumb is build in a platform what you're happy to lose. So if it's something that is going to be just a short-term element, like this could be, for instance, a small policy update, a bit of company news that is going to be transient in a way. That might be absolutely fine to do directly in your platform, because anyhow, it might change next month or next year. But you want to own what you can't afford to rebuild, or what you don't want to rebuild. So let's have a look at what some of these are. In your AI authoring term, internal communications and updates, something that's fast changing. If you've got products that might update all the time, that might be something where that's perfect to go into your AI authoring tool on your platform. And something that's lower stake, it's only information, it's not regulatory and so on. Things that are worth owning, that you want to most likely use an external e-learning authoring tool for. Anything that's compliance and regulatory programs. So they might need to be inspected. They will almost certainly want to be able to take with you. They'll have higher potential levels for auditing and so on. Another area, and the top two areas that we develop content for are on those compliance, and second is onboarding. So these onboarding modules are critical. They're often like flagship modules for organizations. It's the first bit of learning, and often one of the very first opportunities you've got to make an impression upon new joiners, and we know that those first impressions are very important. So we can spend often months developing these flagship onboarding programs, which can be 1, 2, 3, or 10 modules, quite literally. And also your leadership content there, that stuff is usually pretty timeless. So that's something that you want to invest in and continue to use on future platforms that you might have. And really, I guess a general rule is anything that you'll maintain and want to reuse for years to come. That's a general rule. If it's low stakes, short usage time, yep, do it in the platform. Doesn't matter. It's semi-disposable. If it's regulatory, long-term usage, flagship programs, do that in something that's a bit more portable as well. So here's your checklist. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. But the idea around this is giving you the ultimate amount of flexibility in case you do decide to use your tools or AI tools on your learning platform. So first of all, I mentioned this. Export. What can you do for the export? Can you get SCORM file? Can you get one in xAPI? Does it work? So you can get sometimes a SCORM file, and it's literally just kind of an image, so it'll track the slides, but there's no interactivity. It's all lost in that export. So check the quality, if it's clean, if it works. Do you own the source file? Is it editable? Uh, we've seen this so many times where organizations have used another vendor. They've got the SCORM file even, and so they have that, but that's not editable as well. So if you can export the content into SCORM, can you update it? Because I can tell you, you cannot update your SCORM files typically at all. So even if you've got that, if that content's going to remain static, fine. It doesn't matter. If you're not going to need to kind of ever update that, or you're not going to change your branding or anything like this, then you don't need the source files. Something that's important for us when we develop content is, yep, we give the SCORM, and we also provide the source files as much as possible to our clients too. So they're not locked into us. Of course, we want them to use us, but they don't have to if they don't want to. And they can always do editing of content themselves as well. Are there any restrictions on your export rights there, or your exit rights? So what happens to your content if you do cancel or switch platforms? Does it age out? Does it get deleted? How is that managed? And then lastly, and this is important, particularly for larger enterprises, is how is the content used? So typically, if you're utilizing a enterprise model with your large language model providers, your Anthropics and your OpenAIs, part of the enterprise models is that they guarantee that your content is not going to being used to train their models. So do you have the same assurances if you're utilizing AI generated content on your learning platform? So this is just a question you want to ask before you go into utilizing this, if that content you might be training on is at all sensitive, or it's not something you want to go into somewhat of a public domain as a part of a learning set for a language model. So if you're vague or inconsistent, factor that into any procurement decision when you're taking a platform, if possible, or at least consider it if you have already got the platform and then you're looking to leverage it to develop the content. So what are the takeaways today? AI is brilliant. I live utilizing AI. It allows you to go much, much faster in so many domains, and e-learning is definitely one of them. So it's great. It's accelerant, and I encourage you, please embrace it where it makes sense for you. But also keep your content portable. Own what matters to you, stuff that you're going to be using for years to come, and know exactly what you can and cannot do with the content that you've been generating there. Ideally, you might not live on the same system, so ideally you need to be able to take the content with you. Make sure that you verify the learning, that the assessments match the objectives, that the content matches the source materials that you've got as well. Go through a process of red teaming and make sure you do a very robust quality assurance of the content to have a high level of confidence that the learning is good, it's decent. And lastly, stay accountable. That client relationship, your clients, of course, might be internal, or they might be external, depending on where you're working at. But that professional responsibility still lies with you. And so it behooves you to make sure that you are, of course, checking anything that's AI generated. We all should be, of course. I know that that's not always the case, but when it comes to e-learning that might be going to large audiences, then that is still a very critical thing. And going through the materials and verifying it is a critical piece there, not to be overlooked. So that's it for this presentation. I love talking about AI. Of course, I love talking about e-learning as well. It's been my passion for the last 15 years or so. So I'd love to hear from you. What your experience has been using AI authoring so far. Has it been a great time saving for you? Has it caused you any headaches? If you have any questions, I don't know if we can take them directly in this theme as it suggests, but you can make a comment on this and I'll respond to it. I respond to basically all the comments I get on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to me. Most likely here, LinkedIn is a great place to do it. I do go for all of that. And so in the end, um, the best decision in this place comes from asking the right questions early, before you've got dozens of courses, and then that switching cost becomes very, very real. Learn this upfront, and then you'll save yourself a lot of heartache, potentially in the future. Love AI, use AI every day, but just be aware that that there are some considerations, some cons, some factors that you need to keep in mind when you are developing any e-learning through these tools. So I hope you found this insightful. I hope that you will get in touch with me, and thanks for coming along today.